Hello, you guys. Welcome to Edel, my little corner of the internet where we discuss topics that help us get better together. Today, we're discussing a topic that is so sensitive, and I'd like to give a trigger warning. It's very sensitive in nature, so let's be aware of that. If you hear birds cooing all over the place, or if you see squirrels walking and running behind me, don't worry about us. Those are my little buddies, and let them do their thing and we do our thing. So let's watch today's video and then we can have a discussion thereafter.
I was impregnated by my mother's boyfriend at the age of 10.
I watched that 6-part story, so you don't have to. That's Nitra, and she's letting us know what her mother's boyfriend did to her when she was 10 years old. I do want to give a trigger warning. We are going to be talking about child abuse and sexual abuse. So Nitra lets us know that her mother is a very passionate card game player. Whenever her grandmother would have people over, she would be playing cards. And I'm not sure if she met the man that we're going to be talking about in this story at the card games at the grandmother's house, or how she met him exactly. She doesn't really go into that, but she meets this man. At the time, her mom was like somewhere in her 20s, and the man was already 50 years old at this point, right? And so they hit it off. He starts inviting her to parties, events, all types of stuff. The mother started to visit the man at his job. Sometimes she would even take the kids with her, and they would go to pick up money. And so it became like a regular thing that he was in their lives. Things are going great between the man and the mother until she finds out that the man is actually married and has 2 children already. Despite finding that out, the mother continued to date him. Nitra thought it was weird when he invited the mother and her siblings to come to his house and watch the Super Bowl with his family, the one that he's already married to and has kids with. So they go over there. Nothing really happens. Everybody has a great time, but this allowed him to start being like, well, I invited you to my house. You should invite me to your house. All of a sudden, the man started coming to the mother's house all the time, where her kids obviously live. As time progressed, Nitra and her family ended up moving because the house that they were living in, the landlord ended up wanting to sell it. They moved to a place called Carrollwood. The man still has access to the house. At this point, he actually has a key to the house, so he's coming and going as he pleases. It's like his second home. She said the year is 1999 now, and the man has full access to the children, to the point that he actually picks up the kids from school, after school programs. He's with them unsupervised all the time. And Nitra does highlight that her mother was not a bad mother. She loved her kids, but this is just something unfortunate that ended up happening. The summer of 99 is where everything changed. In the beginning, things were normal. Nitra was playing outside. She was a normal child. She would play, at the park with her friends. School was about to start. She said she remembers the day exactly. It was August 11th, 1999. And so the mom needed to grab a few things last minute from the store for her babies. And so she's asking the sister and her, like, hey, do you want to, come with me? Do you want to stay? The sister's like, yeah, I think I want to go. And then Nitra ends up being like, I'm just going to stay home. Now, it wasn't out of the ordinary for her to stay at home with the man. So Nitra's on the couch. She's watching TV. The man's sitting there as well. But she can notice that he's staring at her, and she's not thinking much of it. And then all of a sudden the man instructs her to come closer. Again, she's not thinking he's going to do anything. She gets up, she walks over to him. The man tells Nitra to lay on his lap. He ends up taking off her pants and decides that this is the time that he's going to sexually assault her. At this point, she's telling him, stop, you're hurting me. Can you please stop? He's not stopping. So she starts crying and she's like, please stop, you're hurting me. And it's at this point that he gets up, he goes to the downstairs bathroom, she goes to the upstairs bathroom, and she starts to just scrub herself down. She's crying, she doesn't understand what's happening. All of a sudden her sister comes home. She runs upstairs to find her older sister in the bathtub, and she's like, what's wrong? Why are you crying? When I left to go to the store, you weren't crying. Why are you crying now? And Nitra's trying to tell her, no, I'm fine, it's okay. And eventually the sister gets her to admit, yeah, the man did something to me. And so immediately the sister is like, okay, we have to go tell mom, this is unacceptable. And Nitra's like, no, she wasn't trying to protect the man necessarily, she just didn't want to get in trouble. At this point, Nitra is too scared to say anything. The sister tells her, okay, wipe yourself off, clean up your face, make sure you don't look like you're crying, let's just not tell mom, right? She agrees with her. So the rest of the night, Nitra doesn't leave her bedroom. She doesn't even remember if she ate dinner that night. She stays in the bedroom, and slowly but surely her behavior starts to change. She starts to recluse a lot. She stops playing outside. She stops being a normal child. When the mom came home, she was looking for Nitra, and the sister's like, oh yeah, no, she's sleeping upstairs, trying to really play it off. After the first assault, the man never specifically told her, don't tell anybody, I'll get you in trouble. He never said anything like that. Nitra was still too scared to say anything. She does reassure assure us that the man never touched her younger sibling. Her mom works across town. That's why he has a key to just make life easier for him to get in and out of the house. One day he brings home a hunting cooler and he puts it in the back porch and he tells Nitra, like, hey, if you ever tell anybody what I've been doing to you, I'm going to cut you up and I'm going to put you in that hunting cooler and no one's ever going to find you. So he does finally threaten her, but it was after months and months of the abuse continuing on. It wasn't a one-time thing. This happened for a very long time. Nitra details to us how the man would make love to the mother or whatever you want to call it, and then he would come and abuse Nitra that same exact night. And then the man would do this thing where he would leave money under Nitra's pillow. I don't know if that's to keep her hush. Nitra is 10 years old, but she has started menstruating, and she did notice that her menstrual cycle hasn't come, but she doesn't know what that means. She doesn't know that that's something to be concerned about. She's thinking it's gone, maybe it's gonna come back. She's not thinking maybe I'm pregnant. So one day, quite some time later, Nitra's sleeping on the couch and her sister taps her awake being like, Nitra, tell mom what that man's been doing to you. Tell mom. And Nitra wakes up and she's so confused and she looks at her mom and her sister and she's like, no, you tell her. And then the mom's like, what are you guys talking about? The mom had just came home from work. She goes upstairs, she showers, she decompresses from work, she comes back down, and Nitra's telling her sister, like, I can't tell mom. And eventually, the mom's like, what do you have to tell me? Like, what is going on? Like, spit it out. And so Nitra eventually is like, the man's been doing this to me. The mother is absolutely shocked. She runs upstairs to where the man was and she says, hey, why does Nitra say that you've been touching on her? It's been happening for months. What's going on? And immediately the man's like, she's lying. That's not the truth. And for whatever reason, the mother just believes him. She comes back downstairs and she tells Nitra, well, the man said you're lying. He said that you're not telling the truth. After that, the mother just goes to sleep. And then right after the kids had told the mom what was going on, the man actually left and he stayed away for a few days. He does come back and the abuse continues because at this point, the mother knows and she didn't believe anybody. So everything goes on just the way it has been for the last few months. Nitra is literally going to school, coming home, and going to sleep. She's not interacting with anybody. She's not even playing with her sister. So around this time, the mom and the kids all had a doctor's appointment. On their way to the doctor's appointment, they ended up getting into a really bad accident. Had they made it to that doctor's appointment, that's when she would have found out that Nitra was pregnant. They ended up having to do like a bunch of MRIs, a bunch of therapy. Her sister and her mom both had to get the MRI as well. That's when they end up finding out that she's pregnant. So the doctor ends up calling the mother back and being like, hey, you need to bring Nitra to the hospital immediately. And the mom's freaking out like, is she okay? Is everything all right? What did you find in the scans? And the doctor basically said, like, in your 10-year-old daughter, we found a fetus. You need to get her to the doctors immediately. And instead of the mother putting two and two together and being like, oh my gosh, she was telling the truth, immediately the mother looks at Nitra and says, what little boy have you been messing with at school? And Nitra's looking at her like, I don't mess with anybody at school. I don't talk to any boys. And the mother's gonna say, no, we need to figure out who you've been talking to. You need to let me know who it is right now because we need to talk to their parents and figure out what we're gonna do with this baby. And Nitra's like, there is no parents to talk to. So at this point, the mother ends up noticing that Nitra's breast was actually leaking milk. And so she's like, oh my God, you are pregnant. So she gets her to the doctors. They're doing blood work. They did a full panel workup. Nitra ends up having a very, very kind nurse that was taking care of her during all of this, and she felt comfortable and safe enough to tell her exactly how she knows she got pregnant. The nurse was in absolute shock, and she told Nitra that man will never hurt you again. And they take Nitra to the ultrasound. Her and the technician are in absolute shock. I think Nitra said they ended up doing a pelvic exam just to be sure, and at this point she can't really hear what the nurse and the technician are saying to each other. They're just like whispering to one another, and they eventually wheel her back to her hospital room where her sister and her mom were waiting for her. Best believe at this point, DCF, the police had all been called. They sent out 2 detectives, and when she got back to the room, her mom and her sister were talking to the detectives and giving their version of the stories. Her mother calls the abuser and says, did you do this to my child? And of course, he denies it. At this point, based on what the mother has said and what the siblings have said, DCF decides they're going to remove the children from the mother's care. This is also when the mother finds out that Nitra was 6 months pregnant, which really doesn't leave her with a whole lot of options. So now the mother's asking, what can we do? How can we take care of this? And the doctor basically tells her, like, she's too young to go through an abortion. She's going to have to carry this baby to full term, and then we can go from there. And so the mother's like, are you sure you can do an abortion? And the doctor's like, absolutely not. You can lose both of them. And this is why Nitra, even though she was raped and impregnated, had to carry the baby to full term. At this point, the grandmother has been called, and she was going to take custody of the children. So DCF and the detectives are explaining everything to the grandmother. Both Nitra and her sister are pulled out of school. They're homeschooled. At this point, Nitra was in like 4th grade. I kid you not, now that the mother doesn't have the custody and responsibility of the children, she started living her best life. She stopped talking to the children. She started traveling. She was always in Miami. She could care less about what Nitra was going through. She wasn't there for her for the rest of the pregnancy. She didn't comfort her. Nitra said the emotional toll that pregnancy took on her and her small little body was insurmountable. And then to top it off, not to have your mother by your side. Fast forward, August 12th, 2002, she gives birth to her child. Pregnancy was hard. The labor was hard. She had preeclampsia. They had to induce her. During her delivery, her grandmother, her mother, a few of her mother's friends were all there. The mother ended up passing out. When she came to, the DNA results had also arrived, and it was 99.9% that man's child. That man was charged, arrested, and he was sentenced to 85 years. Because the mother never completed her DCF work that she was supposed to do to gain custody back of the children, the grandmother ended up having custody of not only the girls, but also Nitra's child as well, the newborn. And so now they're living with the grandmother. She all of a sudden becomes abusive as well, starts blaming the children, being like, I put my life on hold, this isn't my fault, mother's the one that let that man rape you, why do I have to pay the cost? And she started to just like verbally and mentally abuse the children. Nitra does mention she's an alcoholic, but that's an explanation. That's not an excuse. The grandmother was saying vile things like, I should have put you in foster care. You're gonna be just like your mom, just a house full of kids with nothing else. Of course, after everything Nitra's been through, she turns into a rebellious child. Can any of us blame her? She starts staying out late, doing whatever she wants to, and it obviously causes friction between her grandmother and her, to the point that the grandmother kicks her out of the house when she was 16 years old. Shortly after that, the younger sister ends up getting into a fight at school. The grandmother ends up beating her with an umbrella, busting her lip open. Once the grandmother busted her lip, she grabs her siblings, she grabs the newborns, and she walks to a nearby church and asks for help. The church ends up calling the mother and being like, hey, your kids are here. The mom comes and picks up the kids. She goes back to the grandmother's house. The grandmother won't open the door for them. So she decides, I'm just going to take you guys to the police station. They go down there to file a report. This led to an entire investigation. The grandmother ended up losing custody of the children. The younger sibling and the newborn were sent off to an all-girls foster home that was like on a ranch. And at this point, Nitra was already used to living on her own. She was already independent, so any foster home that they put her in, she ran away. A few years later, in 2003, the mother actually ended up finding out that she had HIV. Now, at this point, the man had been in jail for quite some time, and rumor had it that he had full-blown AIDS. And so obviously this started to freak Nitra out. She's like, do I have it? Does my baby have it? And they started getting tested every 3 months. And thank God that was not something that she had to deal with. Nitra was fine, her baby was fine. Now, the state did try to charge the mother, but the sisters lied to protect their mother. You know, at the end of the day, that's their mom. After that, the man did end up dying in prison from AIDS, and then in 2015, her mother ended up dying. Nitra's daughter is healthy. She's 25 years old now. She has 2 children of her own. I'm not sure if she's already done it, but she did say that as long as her daughter was okay with it, they were going to do a joint live together and introduce everybody to the daughter. But it does seem that Nitra moved on with her life. She was able to create a life of her own, and I'm really happy about that. It really does break my heart when I hear stories like this.
Oh, this story is super upsetting for so many reasons. It's really, really upsetting. All the layers. And to imagine that it's a person that has to go through all this, it just shouldn't be. We need to protect our children better. We really do. I particularly feel enraged by her mother. The mother's behavior throughout Nitra's ordeals are just inexcusable. This is a person that's supposed to protect you. It's a person that's supposed to be there for you. But she, not only does she not believe her daughter, she goes on to abandon her. Not even just to look up and pick a phone and call and say, how are you doing? How is everything doing? She's out there doing what only she knows. I just cannot understand this. I can't comprehend. And I'd like to leave it that way. I don't want to comprehend, so that I think I can have some little peace. But the thing about this story, it is a story that so many girls face it. And it's always someone that is within the home that is abusing children. It's not only girls that are abused, even little boys are abused. And it is always somebody that is trusted within the home that abuses these children. We need to understand this so that the people that we trust the most, we know that they're the ones that will do the worst. Those we trust the most are the worst, Not all of them, but in majority of the cases. So if you're leaving your child with a caregiver or a caretaker, you have to make sure that there are more people with that child. It's just not one person that you've left your child with. You have to make sure at every given moment that child is surrounded by many people, and make it clear that you don't trust anybody. Make it crystal clear that child should be in everybody's vicinity at every given moment. If you have to pay them, do that. If you can, it's better to have CCTV surveillance. Every moment you have to know where your child is, because the issue is once this happens to a child, it becomes almost irreversible. It's not almost irreversible, it is irreversible, but dealing and coping with things that happen of this nature, somebody's life takes a whole different trajectory that should never be. And reconciling one's life after all this it's such a treacherous journey that nobody should allow that others go through this. And in many cases where this happens, you find the adults are so quick to point fingers at the children without having the bare understanding of what has been happening. We have to understand when a child goes through such experiences, the brain chemistry actually changes. This person's life has completely changed. You'll find little boys, for example, when they're taken advantage of, they don't know who they are, because there's no child who is supposed to be exposed at that age to sexuality. So they start to think they must be gay, and you find a lot of them grow up and they convince themselves that that is who they are, but it is because of the exposure they had when they were young children. We should not do this. We should not allow people to have that kind of access to our children. The girls grow and then they just start becoming hypersexual. They don't understand why they're behaving the way they're behaving, and people are just pointing fingers. You have a promiscuous child, your child has no control. These are things that come as a result of something. Let's take time to understand how people got to where they got. And the worst thing that adults do after these children become this way, teenagers now become rebellious, just like Nitra became rebellious. She became an alcoholic. It is a way to cope. There's nobody that wakes up one morning and says, oh yeah, now I'm up, let me go and become a menace to society. Nobody does that. There has to be a reason. And the inability for adult people to be able to hold space and to find out, parents, teachers, everybody in positions of authority, it's all about naming these children, telling them horrible things. You're cursed, you're a curse, you'll never amount to anything, just things that make the person's experience even worse. And to get out of those words that you're just absorbing from people that should be guiding you, that should be helping you, that should be pouring into you, it takes a toll. And then this child becomes something that they shouldn't have been. But if they got the right nurturing, the right care, the right love, even after the fact, when these horrible things happen, there's time to redeem, and there's time to help themselves. So we have to do better as adults. And also when we have our homes, let's make sure even the person, if we're divorced, for example, the person that you bring into your home, whether it's male or female, the relatives that they're inviting into your homes, make sure you don't allow people to come for sleepovers. Let's be such vigilant parents that it's not because someone has been in your home for so many years that you feel like, okay, I can trust this person. Let's not do that. Let's not have adults having such familiarity with our children. The amount of people that are going through these things and they cannot even speak them out aloud. People are homeless, they're on the streets, they've become addicts because nobody can understand them. And unfortunately, they believe that which they think about themselves, because a child who is of that age, who has such an experience, for her to now just not be normal anymore, not want to interact with other children, is because she believes that there's something wrong with her and there's a reason why this is happening to her and only her. So what else can she believe given such circumstances? So we have to really understand this and protect children with everything that we have, whether it's your own children, whether it's your nieces and nephews. Be the one that's on the lookout, because some people don't even imagine that other people can do this, so they just don't know this. But when you know, please, let's just do better collectively. Let's not let's not have children that are broken and then they end up becoming broken adults. And it's very hard to salvage somebody once they're really broken to the point where they feel like it's out of control. Nobody's ever that broken, but when your experiences have been back to back to back to back in this trajectory, which is the negative one, you don't want to imagine how long that can take somebody to just get on a track that sort of makes sense. So it's important that from when a person is impressionable, that we take care of them, we protect them, and by all means and at all times have conversations. Ask a child, how was your day, what's going on? Allow conversations so that they can also know that I can talk and I can be heard and I'll be believed. Okay. I'm happy to hear that Nitra and her daughter are doing better and they're doing good. That's really relieving. And it's really a big shame on that monster who did this to her. If I could myself, I would castrate that guy and I would do a lot of things. And I'm just glad that it's ended on a note that she can reclaim her life. I'm really, really proud of her. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for being here with me. Share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, you're not broken, you're not damaged, you're not unlovable, you're not too old, you're not too far gone, and it's definitely not too late. Start where you are. You've got this. I'll see you next time.